Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Allen Hour. I'm your host, Dylan Allen. I'm joined by a couple friends and my brother, Andrew Dan, my colleague from ESPN. Andrew, welcome in, guys. We have a lot to discuss with today. College Football Committee announcing the field, the automatic bids we knew going into today, but the group of fives, everything has been announced. And the big shock is that Notre Dame left out of the field. Miami will take their place at the number 10 spot. And again, we welcome you guys into the video. And I appreciate you taking the time out on this Sunday to join me. So, guys, welcome in. And just give me an idea of where you guys are at with how the field was made up after today.
I mean, I could go first as the fellow Allen in the now Allen hour, the other Allen in here.
It's the Allen's hour today.
Yes, it's the Allen's hour today. It's okay. I'll take second place on this one. Usually I take first. That's fine. I'm a little shocked. I shouldn't say I'm entirely shocked because I did play this scenario out in my head a week ago that if BYU got crushed the way a lot of people thought BYU was going to lose, that Notre Dame and Miami were going to be right next to each other. And there's a lot of noise about head-to-head. There's been a lot of noise about head-to-head the whole week. And I thought it was possible that it would prevail. Now it did, but I think the more shocking thing in all of this that I didn't take into account was that Alabama lost so badly. And that kind of threw everything off going into this because now we didn't know where Alabama was going to be placed. Before, we kind of assumed they'd stay at 9, maybe even climb if they won. But since they lost so badly, I thought they were going to drop, and I thought that created quite the path for Notre Dame, and it did not.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, I agree with you. The thing that I was looking at, I guess the committee was looking at the head-to-head for Miami and Notre Dame, and I was listening to CFP chair Hunter Yurachek on Miami and Notre Dame, and he said that once we moved Miami ahead of BYU, we had that side-by-side comparison, and you look at these two teams on paper, and they're almost equal. The one metric we had to fall back on was head-to-head. So I guess they were looking at the head-to-head, which is, I guess the right way to go if you look at it, because the game was in week 1 or week 2 of the season. So yeah, and my Ole Miss Rebels are going to face Tulane again for the second time this season, which is very interesting and very exciting. But there's a lot to get to, Dylan.
Yeah, there's a ton. And you guys handled Tulane pretty handedly the first go around there. And I have my thoughts on the group of five and how I think the playoffs should just honestly not even mess with the group of 5 teams, because I do feel that Notre Dame had the case to be in. I think Miami had the case to be in. Hell, I think BYU and Texas and Vanderbilt even had some cases to be in this field. And I do think that it's kind of maybe annoying isn't the right word, but it's just for the quality of games we're going to get with Tulane and with JMU in the field. I just don't think it would be as good of a matchup if you were to keep in a team like BYU or Texas or Notre Dame at this point. I just think that those teams should have all made it in. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on kind of maybe the alterations to the playoff format. But again, the big story, Notre Dame not in the field. And again, I think it just comes down to the head-to-head. And the biggest question I had was why not just have Notre Dame ranked at 12 and Miami at 10 or 11 heading into this weekend, with BYU either at 10 or 11. Assuming BYU were to lose, the odds would have suggested such, being that Texas Tech was 13-point favorites again. Yep. So just to avoid this whole conversation of what we're having to do now, where you're essentially questioning the committee's decision of jumping a team in front of another when both did not play, solely because the head-to-head came into play. You mean to tell me it was not in play before this decision today? So that was a bit questionable for me.
Yeah, and it's, the commissioner did not have a good day. The commissioner of the committee, he keeps digging himself a deeper hole. His explanation for that was that, well, we thought Notre Dame was better than BYU, and we thought BYU was better than Miami. Okay, so now that BYU is not better than Miami, but then Notre Dame is still not better than Miami, even though the whole explanation is whack. I do agree. The whole thing was, handled poorly. I don't really know how to go about it. BYU lost the way people thought BYU was going to lose. So I do think they should have dropped, but I don't know. That was a messy situation on their end.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Hunter has a really tough job. Obviously, he was on game day yesterday, and they got a hot mic, either Saban or McAfee, saying, "Can you just answer the damn question?" because he was keeping everything really tight to the vest. But I'm very interested in how Bama is still in this playoff. They're a 3-loss team, and they're favored against Oklahoma, which we'll obviously get to. But they looked absolutely horrible yesterday, and you're gonna have them in the playoffs, which is again very interesting.
I know it's a big area, Andrew, that you were pretty passionate about and pretty
Sure.
vocal about when the news did come out. And I know yesterday too, just texting amongst us and amongst friends, and everyone kind of had the same conclusion that they played so poorly in that game against Georgia and in the week before against Auburn in the Iron Bowl was not that impressive of a performance there. So, Andrew, I'll let you kind of air out your thoughts on Alabama not only making the field, but not moving from the 9 slot.
Yeah, so I was actually at the game, took an early flight yesterday, took a
Wow.
late flight home. So finally got some sleep in there. Maybe it's a little more, I feel a little more passionate because I was at the game and I watched the entire thing and I felt like, wow, this Alabama team looks bad. But you have to look back at what they did last week, flipping Notre Dame and Alabama 9 and 10. Going into last week, Notre Dame was 9, Alabama was 10. You come out of it, Alabama beats Auburn on the road. Notre Dame dominates Stanford on the road. And they thought that that was enough to flip Alabama and Notre Dame and give Alabama the 9 and drop Notre Dame back to the 10. So now what that does, even if they were to drop them, which they didn't, it creates a safety blanket. Like they lose the SEC championship. How do you drop them 2 spots to knock them out of the playoff? I thought they definitely should have dropped them to 10. It was embarrassing enough. I mean, you essentially punished BYU for the exact same thing. BYU played a team that they played already and got crushed again, played poorly in their championship and dropped, right? So why not keep Alabama to that standard? I didn't think they were going to move because I didn't think Alabama was going to play so poorly, but they did. And I think if you're able to reap the benefits, if they were to go out there and beat Georgia 28-7, you're probably talking about Bama having a first round bye. But instead, they lose 28-7. How are they not punished for that? If they're able to get to the top with a win, they should be able to sink to the bottom with a loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan, do you have any thoughts in 1, 2, 3, 4? I know Ohio State and Indiana yesterday they played obviously the Big Ten championship out in
Right.
Indy, but I was wondering if I was very curious to see if Georgia jumped Ohio State or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
curious.
That was a big conversational piece going into today. People talking about how Georgia may jump Ohio State. The way I saw it was you had 1A and 1B facing off last night, and it showed. Both defenses played outstanding football, and the offenses for both teams. Ohio State, I mean, they missed a field goal at the end of that game. Who knows what happens to finish the game because everyone, like Brandon Walker for Barstool, I saw a clip this morning of him. He's talking about, well, if, Ryan Day, this, that. Everyone likes to hate on Ryan Day, and myself included, up until last year when he won the national championship. I give the guy a lot of props for being able to win that national championship game last year. But in a point like that, where you have a chip shot field goal to possibly tie the game, you take it every single time. I don't care who your kicker is. Your kicker has to be able to make the easy chip shots. So for you to say, Brandon Walker, bad decision to not go for it there, and you went for it the last time knowing that Indiana had 3 minutes. The defense been playing their asses off all night, both teams. So to me, that game just showed – the game showed me more about Indiana than it did Ohio State. I still think Ohio State is – right up there with Indiana. If they were to play again, maybe Ohio State gets the win the next time. It's a matter of when you play. But Indiana, the defense especially, really showed me that they are legit. Ohio State too. So I think that moving them to 2 and keeping Georgia at 3 was the right move, even though Georgia played pretty much a near perfect game against Alabama. I don't think it's right to move Ohio State down 2 spots, given that they played the undisputed best team in college football.
Yeah.
That's where I stand. And to kind of go back to the Alabama point, to just look at some of their closing games to close out the year, you had a 7-point win at South Carolina, 29-22. You had an 11-point win against LSU at home, and LSU has not been an impressive team this year whatsoever. The defense probably the only unit on that team that you to write home about. Then they come home and lose by 2 points to Oklahoma, and that's an offense that is just dreadful. And we could talk about them making this playoff as well. And then they play a gimme in Eastern Illinois, beat them 56-0. They go to Auburn, win by a touchdown in a game where it was down to the wire. It was a tie game, and they gambled and on 4th and goal and got a touchdown at the very end. And who knows, maybe if they get a field goal, maybe Auburn wins the game. You never really know. And then this past game against Georgia, they lose by 3 touchdowns, and they were never in the game. They got a late touchdown, and just an awful performance. And I saw the committee chairman was pretty much quoting or stating that the Georgia win for Alabama earlier in the year was arguably one of the best wins of the season. And I know, Andrew, that you were pretty vocal about that too. It's just, I don't know how Alabama stays at 9, given their last couple of weeks, especially since they take into account how these teams finish out the season.
I mean, the whole week, all we heard about was, Miami beat Notre Dame at the beginning of the season. And everybody was like, well, if they played right now, Notre Dame would probably win. Well, we just had that situation with Bama, right? Bama's best loss. And he said this of like any team. Like Bama's best win. He said it was like of any team, it was one of the best wins going to Georgia. Yeah, well, you just played on a neutral field and lost by 3 touchdowns. And you could have lost by a lot more, but Georgia was running the ball practically the entire second half because they were already winning the game by a ton anyways. So to talk about some of the games you mentioned about Bama, I wrote down a lot of these games. That South Carolina game, they were outgained by South Carolina, not by much, but they were still outgained. They were also outgained by Auburn. Auburn put up 400 yards in that game. It was the first time, only the second time in the SEC they'd put up 400 yards, Auburn's offense. They didn't even do it against South Alabama, Auburn. These aren't like good wins. The one time they dominated a team, it was Oklahoma, and they lost that game. So they haven't been playing good football since their win against Tennessee in mid-October. It's not like they were rolling and fell on their hands against Georgia in the SEC championship. They've been trending in this direction, and it showed pretty badly.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of Ty Simpson. I think that he has a lot of flaws, and he's going to want to go to the league. Obviously, I think he should go back as well. But with Alabama, they're getting 2.5 against Oklahoma. This Oklahoma team is not good whatsoever. I mean, I think that Alabama will win, but I don't. I mean, this 8-9 game, it could have been a lot better, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. So just questionable decision making there from the committee all over, and it is really interesting. I hope that now Notre Dame learns their lesson here and joins a conference, because I think that's another talking point here. Essentially, with the format as it is now, and assuming that they move it to 16 teams, like everyone is speculating they will, you're almost guaranteed a spot if you can win your conference.
Yep.
I mean, you are guaranteed a spot if you can win your conference, but you will essentially be guaranteed, because when they move to 16, because the group of 5s will likely not be in the equation, if I had to guess. But even if they still are, a Notre Dame team winning the Big Ten or the ACC, whichever conference they decide to join, or should they, whichever one they should join, they will make the field. They will not have a Duke type of season. Money becomes an issue there with why they stay as an independent. They get money from NBC to be the sole team on their football network. But I do think that through the Big Ten, through the ACC, maybe even, they would make north of what they're making through NBC. And I hope they learn their lesson from today, because if they're in a conference and they have a 10-2 record and they make their conference championship game and they play this weekend and win, they're in the damn thing. They don't have to hope for 3 different teams to win, 3 different teams to lose, and then hope for a group of, 20 people, whatever it is. They don't have to hang their hats on like 8 different scenarios. So I just think that this puts the ball in their court more than what it currently stands at now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Notre Dame team this year. I genuinely think they're like a top 5 team in the country. I thought that they could actually win the whole thing if they got in there. But if what happens based on the outcome of this playoff is that they end up joining a conference, I'm pretty happy with that result. I mean, they're going to need to. This is a big slap in the face to them. They can't just float around with their ACC kind of schedule and make the playoff anymore. And it's frustrating for me having to convince people of Notre Dame at the end of the season, because they often don't play a really good schedule. Go join the Big Ten. Prove that you're a top team, which I think you already are. Go prove it, and you'll make it every single year. It's really that simple. I don't know where the money shakes out. I don't know how much money they make staying independent. I know it's a dying breed. I think there's only 3 independent teams left, and I think UMass is joining a conference next year. So it's a dying breed. They might be the only one soon enough, and I think it's a really big spot for them. I think they should join the Big Ten.
Yeah, DA, I know I texted you right before the show. I said, I think that when you texted me that Notre Dame was out, I was like, they have to join a conference, and I think it's also a damn shame that we don't get to see Jeremiah Love in the playoff as well, because that kid's a stud, probably going to go to to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Might not win it, but there's definitely a strong case for that. And I think that Notre Dame's biggest lesson is that you have to join a conference now again. So
Yeah,
I
not
agree.
having Jeremiah Love is going to stink. I mean,
horrible.
I do think that the committee got it right, putting honoring the head-to-head win.
Yep.
I know that might be controversial, but I do think that they had to pick a winning battle. What I mean by that is they either had to pick Notre Dame and then lose the battle of the head-to-head matchup not meaning anything, and then also not endorsing joining a conference or playing in conference play, or they honor the head-to-head and they get people to kind of bitch and moan about Miami's resume and some of their losses. They had to pick one. And I do think that the better one to fall on is the head-to-head, because at the end of it all, you play the game to win. And if you play head-to-head and you win the game, I think that should take the cake on a lot of these different tiebreakers. I really do, because you can't have people questioning playing games, because we're seeing it now where coaches are starting to believe in the notion that scheduling these non-conference games are not worth it. You already see it with Sarkisian in Texas, right? I mean, why go play Ohio State next year after
Yep.
it bit you in the ass this year? I mean, if Texas is 10-2, let's be real. If Texas is 10-2 this year, I know they lost to Florida,
That's the loss.
but
there.
if they're 10-2 and they don't play Ohio State the first week and they beat some team 70-0, maybe they're not in it, but maybe they're the first team out and they're the team that we're having this discussion with 3, 4, 5 weeks leading up to today, debating whether they should or should not be in. Because they had 3 losses, everyone was already saying they're out. But it's going to incentivize teams to not schedule these non-conference games, which we love to see in August, right? I mean, think about it. When the NFL is right around the corner and the summer's starting to end, we're ready for college football as well. We get those August games over Labor Day weekend. We don't want it to just be Indiana versus Old Dominion, or you name these teams. You want to see Ohio State, Texas, teams like that play, but you also don't want it to really bite somebody in the ass, especially when it was just a 7-point loss. You think about how good this Ohio State defense is through 13 weeks we've seen them now. Like, it's not uncommon to see a team score 7. We just saw Indiana put up 13, and after that opening drive of the second half, didn't score another point for the rest of the game. So I just feel bad that is really going to decide some teams' seasons in the first week. I really do. But if it comes down to head-to-head, I think that really takes the cake, and that is a winning battle, or losing battle, I suppose, to some people, that I think is worth falling on and dying for in this scenario. So let's get into some of the games now. Now that we have the seeding, let's break down the bracket. So with the 12 seed, the group of 5, that is the least, or the lowest ranked group of 5 team remaining. That's James Madison. They get in at 12. They got to go to Eugene, Oregon, and play the number 5 Oregon Ducks. And again, a reason why I think the group of 5 stuff should go away is because this is essentially a cakewalk for Oregon. I don't think James Madison has a puncher's chance in this one, but it is going to be a chance for Oregon to get some confidence going into that Texas Tech game the next round.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue it's a more valuable spot than having the double bye in the top 4, right? You get to play one of these G5 teams. You get a bye already because they don't play next week, and you get to play one of these G5 teams and kind of, get the oil moving again. But JMU, the strength of schedule is terrible. They've played one Power 4 school. It was Louisville. Now, to their credit, they were tied in the fourth quarter in that Louisville game. They did end up losing it. It's just going to be a tough go for JMU. They have a great defense, but Oregon has a great everything, and there's not really much to say about this game other than the fact that Oregon's going to get a chance to try things out for their next opponent, and it's kind of a bye week in itself. But they should roll this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Oregon's getting 21.5. I don't think this is going to be close. JMU could thank Duke that they're even in the dance, just in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is going to be a good practice run for when they move on, obviously. So I don't think there's much to say as well. I think Oregon just steamrolls JMU, unfortunately, because
you said it's a 20-point spread, Dan.
21.5.
21.5. So
Wow.
do you guys agree with me that this group of 5 stuff should just kind of go away eventually and allow teams like Vanderbilt to essentially to just extend the field of, instead of 7 at-large teams, it be So what, we have 12 teams. So if you would add 4 more, so you would have 11 at-large teams, and you would have, maybe you allow 1 group of 5 in, but not 2. I know they changed the rule, and the ACC was god awful this year, and if Virginia won, that we would only have 1. But still, I do think that this should go away. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there should be some type of rule in place where it has to be within like a top, like if they're a top 15 group of 5 team, they can qualify. They have to be good enough to a certain extent, right? Like we can't have this where 5-loss Duke goes and wins the ACC, and now we're left to 2 G5 teams that aren't even good G5 teams. At least last year, we got lucky with the whole Ashton Jeanty aura and the Boise State kind of vibe, and they were actually like ranked a top 10 team in the country going into the playoff. We got 2 people that are basically outside the top 20 rolling into the playoff, and it's keeping out some like really, really good national championship contending teams.
Yeah, and obviously, with the Vanderbilt case, again, with the same thing with Jeremiah Love, you don't get to see, Diego Pavia or an Arch Manning even in the playoffs. So, I think that there has to be a rule, but I'll be honest with you, I really don't think that they'll do anything. If you look on their history, I mean, they can move it to 16, but I think that if Virginia made it, that would have been a little more interesting, because maybe Ole Miss would have played Virginia and then Tulane would have played Oregon. But yeah, I mean, there's got to be a rule in place. But to be honest, I don't see that happening with the committee anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you are right. I do think that they want to incorporate some of these teams, and I understand maybe why these. I mean, I understand why these teams want to be in these games. It's big national TV games, but as a fan, this is another thing too. As a fan of these teams, of these schools, right? I mean, you're a James Madison fan. I get that it's great to win the Sun Belt. It's great to have your team's name, your team's logo attached to a matchup like this with Oregon, but deep down they have no chance to win this game. Why not create a group of 5 tournament or something where you combine these schools into their own thing and they actually have a chance to win? Kind of like what the FCS does with their own tournament and all that. So that can be another video for another time, but just my quick little thoughts there. The next game, number 9, Alabama at number 8, Oklahoma. And this is a game we saw earlier this season in Tuscaloosa. Now it goes to Norman, Oklahoma. And it was the Sooners with the 23-21 victory. And this is the game that got Oklahoma into this spot in the rankings where they currently sit at 8, and they didn't move from that spot after that win. So they're in this game because they beat Oklahoma late. As Andrew alluded to, Alabama outplayed and outgained Oklahoma in the game. And it was just sloppy turnovers and great defense from Oklahoma. That was the reason why the Sooners were able to prevail. Want to hear your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think people will look at this game and look at the spread. I think we said it was 3.5. Bama's
Yeah.
favored, something like that. I think
Yeah.
people will look at that and go, well, see, like Bama deserves to be in the playoff. They're favored against a team that's, higher seed, that was locked into this whole thing coming into today. Oklahoma's not a very good team. Their 2 wins, their 2 really big wins that put them in this spot were against Tennessee and Alabama, where they were outgained in both of those games. And it just so happened that Tennessee and Alabama were ranked high enough at that time to push Oklahoma into this kind of untouchable territory. But Oklahoma's not a very good team. They are a very, very good defense. But ever since John Mateer got hurt, it just seems like their offense is not the same, and they don't really run the ball well as much as they try to. It's honestly kind of disappointing because I don't want to keep talking about these bubble teams. Maybe we got some Texas and Vanderbilt fans that want their names to be kept out of our mouths already. But I do think that Texas, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, of course, I think they could be better than Oklahoma. And I just think that timely wins put Oklahoma in this spot. And I think it's unfortunate because I don't think we're going to see a lot of good offensive play between these 2 teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When you look back at this game, Ty Simpson had over 300 yards, which was I think it was his best passing yards number on the year. But those 3 caused turnovers, and then with Oklahoma scoring 17 points off them, that's like 3/4 of their points more, which is crazy. They had the pick six, obviously, like a 90-yard pick six in that game. But 2.5 is, I think it's a good number. I don't the under in this game, the over under. I think the under will definitely hit. I don't think there's gonna be many points. I think I can see like 40 points total in between all of them. Oh, in between both teams, excuse me. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what this game is like. Maybe Ty Simpson comes out and shuts me up. I'm not a fan of Ty Simpson, but yeah, I'll be very interested to see.
I've been on Alabama way too much this season, and I apologize in advance if you are also a viewer of Allen's Key Picks. I don't know what's going on. I'll be honest. I just can't seem to hit anything. And yesterday, as soon as I saw Bucket with Trent posted his picks, and it was Alabama plus 2.5, and it was Ohio State minus the 4, I sat there and I just knew I was going to lose both of those bets, and sure enough, it did. So I do apologize. I will be better going forward. So maybe it's time I just fade him fully and just go Oklahoma in this game. But the other thing too that I kind of question is, okay, so the line you said is 3.5 in favor of Alabama, correct?
Like a 2.5. Like a
2.5. Okay. So you're saying if this game was at Bama, it would be minus 5.5. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. When they played the first time and I took Bama and lost, they were favored by 6. So it's only a difference of about a half a point. So you're saying if this game was at Tuscaloosa again, knowing what happened the first time they played, knowing how Bama has looked the last couple of weeks, it's essentially the same spread. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I agree.
Yeah, I don't want the Allen's Key Picks to get fooled by this Alabama Oklahoma line. You take Alabama in this game. Okay, I don't think
straight up or spread. What are you taking?
I'm going back to the well.
Take Alabama in this game. You have to. The entire public just saw Alabama get slaughtered practically by Georgia. They're going to be all over Oklahoma. They have no confidence in the offense. And honestly, I really don't have a lot of confidence.
Neither do I. I've been burned.
Oklahoma. But you got to remember, I mean, they really did move the ball against Oklahoma, but there were just several timely turnovers against Oklahoma that put them back in that game and eventually won them the game. I think they scored 17 points off turnovers, something like that. They only scored 27 points in the game or something like that. So I think just I'll let it cook. We have 2 weeks to decide on this. I'll let it cook. We'll see what happens. But don't abandon the Alabama train just yet, because I just don't think Oklahoma is that good.
So the winner of this game would go on to face Indiana at the Rose Bowl. So in my opinion, whoever wins is going to their own funeral. So I don't know if, go ahead, win a game at home, Oklahoma. Do what you got to do. Alabama, go win a big road game. But I don't think it really matters in the end.
No, it really doesn't matter. I was very upset this weekend. I thought that North Texas was probably one of the most locks of the century that I had. I was all over North Texas. So was DA. And unfortunately,
Andrew was too.
Nobody watched more North Texas than me this year. And I was pretty disappointed. Yeah.
I was all over. But again, Bama wins. They face Indy. And, maybe you'd like to see Alabama Indy rather than Oklahoma Indy, as a fan. But Alabama's getting minus 122 or whatever on the money line. So I think it's not even close. And over-under is 40.5. So I was right there.
Wow.
Didn't even look.
Holy
it was
crap.
40.5.
40.5. We have a playoff. It's 40.5.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that I think Bama wins probably pretty handily as well. So
it's funny because when this new playoff bracket and format was created and implemented, I remember seeing specifically the Hillary Clinton meme where she's like walking into like that third world country, like apartment or whatever. And everyone was saying, Nick Saban going into, you name it, some random city where it's like snowing in December. And I know it's not Nick Saban and I know it's going to California, but it's kind of just giving me that vibe where it's like Alabama going against Indiana, and Indiana's the number 1 team. Like, geez, like it just
I hope you put that
right
picture in the edited portion.
Yeah, please.
I will.
I will giggle watching it back. Yeah, I will.
I'm going to.
That's what my mind immediately thought of. Just thinking of that, I was just like, wow, like imagine if we ever had a scenario where Oregon's got to go to Harrisonburg, Virginia, and play James Madison. Like, I can't see that happening. But it's one of those crazy things. So okay, now we'll get to your team, Dan. Ole Miss is wearing the hat today. They will host Tulane, the 11 seeded. What are they? The Green Wave, I believe.
The Green Wave
will host. Yeah. So again, this is also another big topic too, in the current format. Being able to get either the 5 or the 6 seed is huge because you play in this scenario 2 group of 5 teams instead of a team like Miami or like we just mentioned Alabama. So we'll go towards Tulane and Ole Miss again. This should be another route. And you would go on to face Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl, which would be a fun one to watch. And selfishly, I wish Lane Kiffin was still coaching, but I think we all know how that went.
Yeah, I think we all do. I'll let Dan talk about this more, but I just feel like, I mean, we saw this already. Tulane played Ole Miss earlier in the year and got absolutely routed. I think it was 45-10, something like that. That was that was just his second start coming in for the injured starter there, Austin Simmons, I believe his name is.
Yep.
So they got routed. I mean, and it feels like it's going to be that again. Chambliss has only gotten better as the season has gone on. I mean, there is a little wrinkle in there, right? You got no Lane Kiffin, but he sent his OC back over there to win him his money for winning some playoff games. So I think Ole Miss is going to do pretty well in this situation.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see, the Pete Golding era it's all over, Twitter. I was on X last Sunday, just the whole day, I think, just waiting to see what Lane does. Obviously, you knew he was going to leave because, this is a whole other video, but the college football calendar is just completely horrible. As me and Dylan spoke, it's tough that Lane had to leave. I didn't mind if Lane left after the season, but it was a little upsetting, right? It's a big distraction for this team. This is the best season for the state of Mississippi football, like ever. Like this, just talking to some Ole Miss fans and stuff. I have a relative who played on the team, actually, so that's where the fandom comes from. But I was looking at this game, and they're getting 17 and a half. It actually just moved to 16 and a half as I'm looking right now. So 16, 17 and a half or whatever. I don't think this will be close. I think that this is going, I think that this game is going to say a lot about Pete Golding. Obviously, the team was rallying around him. There are reports and whatnot. We don't have to get into them. But, the team is very excited to rally around this head coach. And I'm very excited to see what he does. He is a defensive mind. Obviously, he was a defensive coordinator, and they didn't even move up. They didn't even put the interim on him. They went right up to the permanent. So he's the head coach of this football team. Very excited to see what my boys Trinidad, Kawan. I'm very, and Kawan Lacey, probably one of the most underrated players, in the country. This guy's got 20 touchdowns. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what they do. I think, again, not to say, we're not going to take Tulane lightly, but, this is kind of like the trial run, to go face Georgia, which they only lost to by 8 points last time in Athens. So, I'm very excited for this game.
That's going to be a very, very good game when Ole Miss has to go play Georgia on a neutral site, and you're going to see Georgia finally having to stop an actual offense that can move the football and can run the football and can do pretty much anything. Ole Miss didn't lose anybody yet in the portal, correct? Everyone stayed. It's just obviously Lane, and that whole thing was the only big
obviously.
miss. Okay.
Yeah, so everybody stayed. They actually flipped. They flipped a couple commits from LSU to Ole Miss, which is pretty cool. It's another story, but we flipped a 5-star, which is really cool. But I'm very excited to see what they do here. Obviously, you mentioned Charlie Weiss Jr. is back, which is huge because an old friend of ours probably would have been offensive coordinating in Joe Judge. So
good God, no.
Yeah, he's the quarterbacks coach. Jackson Dart loves him. But I'm very excited to see what they do and see what this era of Pete Golding's like, and the players are really rallying around him, which is really good to see.
I'll tell you what, I hope Dart doesn't love him enough where Mike Kafka or whoever this coach hires him as our quarterback or OC for next year. I'm good with that. We had the Joe Judge trial.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
I don't know if we'll keep recording episodes where we will be previewing that Ole Miss Georgia game.
I hope so.
I'd be pretty concerned.
Yeah.
And now I don't want to be I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. The Ole Miss vibes are high. I would be pretty concerned for Ole Miss in that game.
Yeah,
I understand the hype around Pete Golding. I do, but the defense is their worst aspect of that team.
Yeah. 43 they got hung up on. 43.
Yeah, look, if they can rally around him, and that really makes a difference. I mean, that changes things for me. But Georgia's defense is getting better every single week. They are getting better and better and better. And you could crap on the Alabama offense; they played like crap. But you got to also give credit to the Georgia defense. They are getting better every single week. It's not quite like Georgia of old, but it's getting there.
So let's get to the next game here. This is the big one where people think Notre Dame should have been in this game. We should have gotten a rematch with the Aggies and the Fighting Irish, but instead it's the Miami Hurricanes who will have to take the trip down to College Station and take on the Aggies of Texas A&M. And this should be, I don't know what to think because Miami, they are an ACC school, but I also do think that any given Saturday they can overachieve and overperform that ACC status. Texas A&M has looked beatable in recent weeks. Interested to hear what you guys think.
We've heard Nick Saban say on College Game Day before that teams don't want Miami in because they have a ton of talent on that team. I do think he's right about that. I think the trenches, especially the offensive line and defensive line, are really, really good for Miami, and I think that could cause some trouble. The thing I'm worried about on the Texas A&M front, I mean, look, they're coming off a home loss to Texas. It was not a great game for them. what people don't talk about a lot is Mike Elko. He's a great defensive coach. He was at Duke. Their defense hasn't been great this year, and they've avoided Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt on their SEC schedule this year. So as much as they've been rolling, it's not like they're have the best strength of record so far. And I do think that it's an ACC team, and with the ACC being so bad this year, you have to think that Texas A&M probably wins this one. But Miami in the trenches could be dangerous. They can run the ball and they can stop the run a little bit. I think it could be an interesting game in College Station.
Yeah, I'm very interested. You know, they're getting 3.5 A&M, and I'm looking at Texas A&M schedule. They beat Notre Dame obviously by 1 back in November, but the teams that they really beat up on, a Missouri team not ranked, and they lost to Texas that game last week or 2 weeks ago. When they lost to Texas, that really said something to me. You know, I think this game's going to be a lot closer, and you know, if you think that if Notre Dame should be in it, they probably win this game. If I'm being honest with you, over A&M. So you know, I'm very interested to see what this game is. You know, and Marcel Reed obviously, but I think that you can. I really think it's going to be a toss up. The 3.5. I mean, I really don't know who's going to win this game, but Mike, I'll
Wow.
just stick with A&M. You know,
The 3.5 is surprising because that just tells me that on neutral site, like if this was
again, yes,
in the next round, it's a pick 'em. You know,
yeah,
it's a bit surprising, but I understand I understand why A&M has not looked the same in recent weeks that they have been in earlier in the season. So I understand why they felt the
yeah,
need to move that line to where it is.
I will
because
say,
yeah,
if they want to stop Miami's offense, if they want to halt Carson Beck, you got to stop Malachi Tony. I mean, that is his
Beck's a
favorite
stud.
receiver. He goes to him over and over and over again. If they could shut down Malachi Tony, their pass game is going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, and you know, you look at this game as well. You know, Carson Beck, he's really been, you know, that kid can throw the football. He gets a lot of hate, but he's only had about 3 games this season, 200 or under passing yards. I mean, he can really throw the football. Very excited to see what this game entails. Again, Dylan, you're correct with the pick 'em. I think a neutral site, flip a coin at this point. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, man. I'm probably gonna go with A&M.
Yeah, you know, I might lean that way as well, but you never do know. Miami might just be that wild card team that surprises a lot of people. Like, not saying that they're the Arizona State of last year, but they might just have, you know, that kind of run in them. And that's a question I'm going to ask towards the end of this video. You know, who do you guys think will be the Arizona State or the Notre Dame type of team that just kind of makes a bit of a run in this thing that no one kind of sees happening? Now, do you guys think that the winner of this game remotely has a chance against Ohio State in the next round?
You can go,
Just
Andrew.
because of
Yeah,
how good Ohio State defensively has looked?
yeah, I see. I knew the question was coming eventually at like who was going to be the Arizona State or the Notre Dame, and you know, you look at Miami, and Miami honestly was probably going to be my pick until you look at the next matchup. I mean, that's just that's
It's
tough for
tough.
both of these teams. How do you go now? You don't have to go to Ohio State, but how do you go play a neutral site? How do you go play Ohio State right now? They're coming off a loss against Indiana, but it's not an embarrassing loss. Their defense still looked freaking fantastic in that
Yeah.
game. I don't know, man. That's going to be tough for either of these teams. I do think. Texas A&M has some firepower on offense that maybe could keep them in the game for a little bit, but then again, we've seen some defenses make Marcel Reed, you know, really turnover happy and really make some
A&M,
questionable
yeah.
throws. So it's just I feel like I feel like Ohio State's going to have the better of either of them.
Yeah, I agree. You know, that South Carolina game really said a lot about this team. You know, I'm glad that they came back and stuff, but that really did say a lot. But you know, if A&M were to win this game, the Cotton Bowl, and that's in Dallas, Texas, usually in AT&T Stadium, so that could be a home game for
That's
them.
true.
You know, so yeah, that again, you look back at teams they beat up, Missouri, an LSU team that was ranked 20th at the time, barely hanging, just hanging by a thread in the rankings. But yeah, I think that A&M will win this game. But and then you know maybe they roll some momentum in at like a home game again, as I said. But yeah, I think that none of these teams remotely have a chance against hungry OSU team.
Now, last year, granted, the 3 and the 4 seeded schools were the automatic bid winners, so that has since changed in the rules. But none of the top 4 teams made it through their first rounds last year, which was kind of interesting to think about, especially with some of the games where you thought in the Notre Dame Georgia game. You could have seen either team winning that. It wasn't one-sided games like Penn State, Boise State, or even Texas and Arizona State, which that was not even one-sided. I take that back. That was a game in which Arizona State pretty much had that won, but the higher seeds prevailed, or the higher numbered seeds prevailed in those first rounds. So are there any, and the reason I bring it up is because now this year with the rule change, these top 4 teams look so solid. I don't know. I think maybe Georgia, maybe you put as the quote unquote worst one. And I say that because of how good Tech's defense looks this year. Do you guys foresee any upsets in the quarterfinal, or do you see the 4, the 1, the 2, the 3, all those schools moving on?
I mean, I'd probably see it that way. I do think the top 4. I mean, like you said, the top 4 teams this year are actually the top 4 teams in the country. Like that's what they think, and I honestly agree with them. Last year, you had your Arizona State, who I think was actually supposed to be ranked 12, that got the bye, obviously, and then you had Boise State, who was ranked 9, that got the bye. But Oregon and Georgia were 1 and 2, and they were actually 1 and 2 in the country going into that tournament, and they both lost. So it's not impossible. I just think the higher up this year is really, really good and defense driven, which I think is like huge. I don't think a lot of these teams are really too dependent on their offense, which is nice because the old saying is defense wins championships. And you look at Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech, they all got pretty damn good defenses. So I don't think we'll see any of them losing in the first round.
Yeah, and we look to the quarterfinal. It will be Oregon versus Tech if they obviously move on against JMU. That's a game that I'm really interested to see with the strength of Texas Tech's defense against Dante Moore, to see what they do. And you never know with the Alabama team that's hot if they win against Oklahoma. You never know. That's the beauty of college football. But I think we're going to go down to the Ole Miss Rebels here, and I think that they play Georgia again. Trying to beat a team twice is pretty difficult. So, and they played them really well the first time. But the Ole Miss defense would need to step up. Obviously, you can't let Georgia hang 43 points on you. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see. But, I'm looking at the Oregon versus Tech game in the quarterfinals, and then the Ole Miss Rebels against the Georgia Bulldogs.
I think that's the game to look out for, is the Oregon Texas Tech eventual meetup in the Capital One Orange Bowl down in Florida. I do think that Tech's defense is very, very good, but we also saw for a period of time in the BYU game this past weekend, Texas Tech offensively struggled until towards the end of the game, where they were able to pull away. And even on some of the turnovers that their defense created on BYU's offense, they were settling for field goals. So I do think that if there's going to be an upset in terms of the numbered team being higher than the lower seeded team, I think Oregon over Texas Tech is the most likely one. And I'll tell you what, sign me up for a rematch of Oregon and possibly Indiana in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. That would be an awesome game to see in the semifinal. But even if we get Oregon versus Alabama, or someone like that, or Oklahoma, I will not complain. But I do think that Oregon, Texas Tech is the game to look out for. And for your sake, Dan, and for the sake of everyone who loves college football, I will be rooting for Ole Miss to be the dark horse team this year, because losing your coach in the way they lost their coach just sucks. It stinks. It really does. And as a fan, I can't imagine what it was like going through that, having such a historic season in the ways that you had it, just for it to end with this dilemma and this downfall of the coach and threatening to take his position coaches with him and not having jobs for them if they didn't leave with him. Just all sorts of nonsense going on. It was just a whole mess that really put a dark cloud over what was an awesome season for them. So I do hope they make a bit of a run in this thing. And, maybe they face Ohio State in that Fiesta Bowl in the semifinal, or maybe A&M, whoever it may be, Miami. So I can't wait. This is going to be an exciting football playoff. Now, again, I kind of asked it already, but dark horse team for this playoff. Andrew, I know you said Miami. Maybe
I like that,
if there's another team in there, but just to kind of make a similar run that we saw Notre Dame make, because they not only made a run, they were in the national championship game, and they were in it until fairly late into the game. Like, they started to come back a little bit in that game, but they were competitive, and they beat really good schools like Penn State and Georgia along the way. So is there a school, and you too, Dan, is there a school that you guys see making a run like that this year, or is it just going to be chalk?
I guess a team I would have to choose would be out of the top 4, because I think that's all chalk, obviously.
Yeah.
Miami, I can't put my faith to go to a national championship on an ACC team, especially this year. They have disappointed me so much. I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. And I don't want to like, make this a freaking Ole Miss podcast. But if I had to pick a team that's not in the top 4 that could make a run, it's Ole Miss, especially because all this change just happened. They go and play Tulane. Okay, that's a good game to start with, like a new staff, new play callers. That's a good game to just you get some game under your belt and go roll a team and get some confidence for the next one. So I'll take them. I won't say I'm overly confident about it because, again, I don't love their defense, and I think you need defense, especially like Notre Dame had last year, to make a run like that. And Miami would be that team that would provide that defense, but they're an ACC team. They've disappointed me all year, the ACC, and I cannot be exposed again for saying that the ACC is going to win something. So I will not do that.
Again, we were talking about this Oregon game. Obviously, I know what I really want to say in my head. Obviously, it's Ole Miss, but I'm looking at that Oregon team. They got a pretty favorable matchup, in Tech, and I think that Tech, obviously with Jared Rodriguez, that kid's an absolute stud. But I think that if Oregon, they gain some momentum, I think that they could be the dark horse of this college football playoff. And then obviously down in Hotty Toddy land over in Mississippi, I pick my Rebels against the Dogs. If hopefully they beat Tulane pretty handily. But this game will say a lot about them, about where they are as a program. I just hope they just go in and just completely blow Tulane out. I don't want to any of this close game BS. I'm going to be watching the game in Nashville. I'm going to Nashville with my buddies.
Nice.
So we were hoping that Vanderbilt was going to be in it because I think that'd be more fun just for the atmosphere. But I think that hopefully that they don't keep this game close in the Tulane game. So I'm going to pick Oregon as my dark horse, but I'm also going to pick Hotty Toddy and Ole Miss. So
I really do like the Oregon pick, and Ole Miss too, is just because of what's happened
America's
this
team.
year. It really is, I think, America's team. And if you love college football and you kind of just want these coaches to stick around with these teams and build programs and stay with them, like Cignetti's doing with Indiana, like Ole Miss is the school to root for. I know it didn't happen with Kiffin, but just you kind of want to see them come out on top after all of that. And kind of just like slap Lane Kiffin in the face and just be like, hey, we just made it to the national championship or the semifinal and lost by a field goal to Ohio State without you, pal. We don't need you. We're going to keep it moving from here. It would be great to see. I do think Oregon, considering their only loss this season was to the number 1 team in the country.
They kept it close too.
They kept it close. 30-20 is not a blowout by any means. So that is a game that I am also looking forward to. With or a team, I should say, that I'm looking forward to and potentially having that rematch later on in the bracket. Now, let's go through the games. We obviously kind of discussed the matchups, but just if you were to pick this upcoming round, who advances, and then obviously the toughest one to decide would be Oklahoma-Bama, I think, or Miami, Texas A&M. So I just want to hear who you guys think advanced to the next rounds. And then who do you have winning the national championship? No dark horse in this, unless you really do think one of them is going to win it. Who do you have as the team that you are taking to the bank to win this whole thing?
All right, so to go over the games, I'll take Oregon against JMU, and I'll take Ole Miss against Tulane. I think those are the 2 layups. Where I'm going to surprise, I'm going to take Miami to go into College Station. I'm going to take them to beat Texas A&M. I have not been impressed with Texas A&M's defense, and I think Miami could expose them big time. Miami's defense is playing pretty well, given against the ACC, so we'll see. And I'll take Oklahoma losing to Alabama. I'll take Alabama in that game as well.
Yeah.
Again, this is in 2 weeks. I could change my mind. I could flip every single thing I just said, except for the group of 5s, of course. And then for my national championship, it's hard not to pick a Big Ten team because I do think they have really, really good offenses. They just didn't show last night because I think their defenses are that much better. But I'm kind of in love with this Georgia team, and I think they're freaking clicking on defense. And if they can get back to anywhere close to where they were a couple years ago, I think they can make some noise. And just not to be pure chalk and take a Big Ten team, I think they have the path. And I think Georgia could win the national championship.
And before we get to you, Dan, just to kind of to his point, the path would be Ole Miss and then likely having to play Ohio State. And if they get past those 2 schools, you would think it would likely be against a team like Indiana, possibly Oregon or Texas Tech, which you would probably feel comfortable, Andrew, if they were playing Oregon, Texas Tech, and I don't know how you would feel about Indiana, but you would feel comfortable having already assuming they beat Ohio State to get there. You would feel pretty confident about.
I think
game.
Indiana and Ohio State are probably better teams than Georgia and will probably be the ones that are there at the end. But yeah, I would not want to face Ohio State and Indiana. But hey, that would be a hell of a path. If Georgia wins, they're like undisputably the best team. If they go,
That's what I'm saying.
and
Yeah.
they beat
Yeah.
Ohio State and then beat Indiana, that would be something. But I would much rather face a Tech or an Oregon in that spot.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking at these games. I'll just start picking, Dylan, if that's cool.
Yeah, go right for it.
I'm
Go
gonna pick
ahead.
Oregon. Obviously, 21. It could be a 30-point spread. I don't think it comes close.
Nice.
I'm going to take Alabama as well. Something about this Oklahoma team really, really just throws me off, man. I don't know. I think Ty Simpson silences me as well. Because I'm a big hater, unfortunately. I don't know why. I'm going to pick A&M. I have a feeling it's all chalk. It's going to be all chalk, and I think that Ohio State losing yesterday. I know some Ohio State fans are listening. I got a buddy; he's going to be listening. Ohio State, big Ohio State fan. I think that losing yesterday gave them a better draw than if they were the 1 seed having to play Oregon or Alabama or Texas Tech. I personally would rather play either A&M, Miami, Mississippi, or Georgia rather than those teams. But I think that losing the Big Ten championship yesterday helps definitely help them, get a better draw for this playoff. I'm going to take A&M. I think I said that, and then Mississippi by 1,000,000. Come on, Dylan. You know
Yeah,
that,
That is
I'm
an
with you.
all-time Jersey matchup, which I think is something we haven't talked
right?
about yet. Ole Miss Tulane, that's
Oh,
that's
so
an
tough.
all-time Jersey
Powder
matchup.
blues
Those are
coming out.
clean
Oh, yeah.
unis.
It's
Yeah.
very true.
Are we picking quarterfinals, DA, or no?
Yeah, sure. Give me your whole thing.
Sure.
What I will say to your friend
Everything.
watching, the Ohio State fan, I just got 2 words for him. Jaden Fielding. We'll just
man.
leave with that. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Hey, man, I'm sorry, man.
That's
Listen,
okay. It's a chip shot.
I had a chip shot, man. I can make
Did you see
fun.
that? Did you see that clip of him? It was a pregame hitting the uprights from the corner of the end zone. There was a clip of him.
No, I didn't
kicking.
see that. No.
There was a clip of him kicking in pregame, hitting the corner of the end zone, hitting the uprights, practicing kicking, trying to bend it in. I don't get it, man. It's college kickers are really something else to him.
Yeah, and one other thing, just to kind of
horrible.
twist the knife with your friend,
Dude.
that was his first miss from 20 to 29
Yeah.
yards all season.
Yeah.
He's now 6 for 7 from that range. So yeah, that's a tough one to swallow, especially since I was on Ohio State minus the 4. I am
Yeah,
just
me
upset
too.
that did not pan out. So I
was going to put my house. I was going to put my house in Ohio State minus 4. I thought it was such a lot. Oh, luckily I didn't. I think that
I'll be able to do this video.
Yeah, that's right. I think that you look at. I'm going to pick Ole Miss over Georgia because I think I have to. And then, could you imagine Ole Miss in the semifinals against the Ohio State Buckeyes? Can you imagine America's team in Ole Miss? That would just be awesome. And just everything that they went through. It's a horrible story for the kids, college athletes. But I'm going to go with. I think it's very difficult to not see Indy and Ohio State in the national championship. And that would be an awesome game just as a college football fan. I'm probably going to end up. I think I'm going to go with Ohio State to go back to back. I have a feeling that this team is just going to just steamroll in the college football playoff. It'd be obviously really cool to see Ole Miss, but I don't want to pay Lane Kiffin any amount of money. I don't want to pay him a single penny. Excuse me, because every win that we get, he gets money for the college football playoff. I don't want to pay this man anything anymore. So, but I want to see them win the national championship, of course.
Yeah, that's why Charlie Weiss is back there. All right, he
Yeah,
wants to
that's my
see
guy,
money
yep.
come in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
I'm glad he's back. So,
All right, so if I'll run through real quick, I also have
good.
Oregon winning and Ole Miss winning in the 2 layups of the first round here. Just because you both have convinced me that this is such an Oklahoma trap game and that they're not as good as advertised, I am either losing with you two or I'm winning with you two. I am not going against you guys. I am tired of losing. So yes, Allen's key pick fans. Yes, I'm going again with Alabama here. I know. I'm sorry. If they lose, I will fully stop betting on this team and telling you to pick this team to win. But I do think they win this game because in the first meeting they outgained them, and they just played a better game. And it was one of those games. I shouldn't say played a better game. They outgained them, and it just seemed like they were on their way to winning it, and they just couldn't figure it out. And I think they'll silence some of the people saying, including us, that they've looked horrible these last couple of weeks. And I can't imagine that they're going to look anything remotely close to what we just saw, or at least come out in that fashion, because that was horrendous.
Was that an Allen Key pick the first go around?
It's not one of my strongest picks, but you know,
that was on the board. Okay,
it might make the video. It might make the video. And I also, as funny as this sounds, I do think Texas A&M wins, and I say this because I think multiple points will be proven with this whole committee thing. One was Notre Dame join a conference, and the second one was you're going to get Notre Dame fans pissed off because Miami's going to lose this game, and they're going to be like, well, we should have been in. Head-to-head's garbage. We're going to get both of that. And the committee is going to have to eat it, putting in Miami and honoring the head-to-head. That's how I just feel this shakes out. I do think Marcel Reed is an X factor that is a tough assignment for any defense. And your guy, Casey Concepcion, Andrew, that guy can really light it up. He's a dog. Again, these are not picks for spreads. I'll look into those when those games are closer and those lines are finalized. I will make that video. But in terms of just winning games, I think A&M moves on in this one. And again, it's at College Station. I don't know if Miami has played. Think about this too. In the ACC especially, but maybe Clemson, but is there a stadium that's remotely close to a stadium like Texas A&M with 105,000 people screaming the entire game? You think about it. Their home games are at the Dolphins Stadium. There's barely anybody in that place, right? Clemson maybe has 70,000, 80,000, maybe. But you think like Louisville, none of these schools are like Penn State, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Michigan, where you have 100,000 plus. I think this is a tough spot for Miami to go into an environment like this and possibly squeak out a win. So I think A&M moves on. Then I think Oregon and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech might be that team that makes the run this year. I know I said look for Oregon to win in this game. Potentially, I think that would be the upset in that round, like the closest 1-1. But I think Texas Tech could be that team that upsets either Indiana. I guess Indiana would be in that next round if they were to move on from Oregon and make a run in this thing. I think their defense is really, really good. Jacob Rodriguez is a stud, but it's not just him. You watch the game against BYU, they were all making plays. They had this really big dude. I don't even know his name, but he's on the defensive line. They kept saying he weighs like 340 pounds. You watch him play. The guy's running around. My cousin Jake was like, he looks like a fridge. He's a humongous
like Desmond
guy.
Watson in Florida. You look like him.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
Exactly. So
that guy's a beanbag.
So I'm confident, very confident in that defense. I loved what I've seen from them this year. Their offense is a big question, but I do think they make a run.
I mean, it's not crazy that they have a freaking billionaire that has totally restructured that defense. Their defensive line is freaking incredible. Now, when they have to play the Big Ten and the SEC, we'll see how that unfolds. But it's incredible, and they've been blowing out Big 12 teams.
See how much money they spent? Just Tech in general, and they had the #1 recruiting class in 27.
Yes.
Watch out for those guys. Jeez.
Yeah,
a lot of money on that
down there, and they just extended their coach, so that guy's not going anywhere. McGuire, he's not going anywhere. So this is going to be a team here for a couple of years at least. So again, then I would have Alabama with Indiana, and I think Indiana does win. I think this is where Alabama's inability to run the football that has been highlighted now for numerous weeks, and I chose not to believe it going into this game against Georgia. I wish I did. I think it gets exposed. You saw how Ohio State struggled to move the ball at times in that game yesterday, and just all season long, Indiana has been dominant on the defensive side. I think Indiana moves on to that, and I think then you get into that range where maybe Texas Tech makes that splash win. Maybe they don't. I just, based off what I have seen, Indiana is the clear-cut #1 team, and I do think at a certain point, Texas Tech offensively is just not good enough to get past an Indiana defense. And I think Indiana makes it to the championship game. On the other end, I would have Georgia, Ole Miss. I do think Georgia wins because Ole Miss defensively just has not looked good. Dan, I hate to say it.
Damn it, Dylan.
I hate to say it. Okay. I hate.
You haven't looked good on defense.
I'm rooting for Ole Miss. That makes any sense.
Of course.
I am rooting for them to win this whole thing. I want them in Texas Tech. That would be my preferred championship.
You're rooting for Lane Kiffin to make money out of leaving LSU.
The guy's
What a
making
story.
90 million or whatever with LSU.
What a
Listen, he's making
story,
money either
man.
way. It don't
What a
matter if he wins
story.
another million for winning this whole thing. Who cares?
What
At
a
that
damn
point.
story that was.
Dude,
The whole thing's
that would
ridiculous.
Think
be
about that.
something if
Can you
they won the
imagine it?
national
Oh my
championship and
gosh.
he got paid to
This guy
win
did
No,
$1
the
million.
national
$1 million.
championship
But
at
see,
LSU.
but you ask
No,
him,
he's nuts.
you ask
Yeah.
him, the money won't matter. It
No,
will be
well,
that
yeah,
he
sure.
wasn't able to be on the stage.
Give me a
He wasn't
break.
able to lift the trophy, right? I mean, he wasn't able to have that to his resume. And think about it too. If he ends his
Imagine
tenure at
being
LSU
state-
and never wins a championship, and they had that championship the year he left, I mean, think about the amount of regret he's going to have. So I really do hope it happens. Just for
Lane
that.
is out of that job. If the Alabama jobs open up, he could buy LSU. He's going to his dream job.
Yeah,
Give me
you're
a
probably
break.
right. It would not surprise me after what we have seen unfold.
Tossed around
Um,
this guy.
So then I think it's Ohio State, Georgia in that next round. So I'm going. I mean, I guess I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 to all make it to the semis. And I think Ohio State moves on. And I think the Texas Tech Indiana game is the real toss up for me. And if Tech's on offense can make it and play well enough to make it to that next round, I'm with Dan here though. I think Ohio State wins this whole thing solely because if they do face off against Indiana again, I just don't see what we saw Indiana do defensively. I don't think they can replicate that. I really don't, because Ohio State had numerous chances down in Indiana's territory. The fourth down they didn't convert on, with Sayan's knee hitting the ground before he was able to get it across the first down marker. Then the guy misses his field goal. There was just a lot that had to happen. And then also Sayan throws an interception on their own side of the field to start the game.
You
Both
never
teams
see that.
struggle to move the ball, albeit, but I just think that Ohio State offensively has a little bit more firepower. They couldn't stop Jeremiah Smith. And if you guys were watching yesterday's game, which I know you both were, when they would line up to run the ball, Ohio State, you go back and watch, they would have one-on-one with Smith and whoever was guarding him on Indiana. I want to say there was at least 10 yards of separation. And every time they snapped it, they ran it. In my head, I was just saying, why not just snap and quick throw it to him? Because essentially, you just got to beat your one guy, and there's no one on that side of the field. If you can get it to him quick enough, that's a guy who can make a play, especially when they're in on the goal line. They keep running the ball, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. They throw it to him and see what happens. Maybe he makes a play and he makes the guy miss and he's in.
I think Indiana was so scared of the big play downfield, and that's part of the reason why they were so good in the red zone, is because Jeremiah, they weren't threats downfield anymore once you get in the red zone, so they can kind of contain them more.
Yeah.
No, but I mean more so like a screen. Literally just snap it.
Yeah.
Smith doesn't even run. He just turns towards the quarterback and he throws it, catches it, and then he's just got to make a juke or a spin and just get around that guy and he's in. There was no one on that side of the field. If you watch those plays I'm alluding to, he was naked. But he on the runs, he would run up and just kind of hit the guy. And that was the end of that.
I think if they play again, Ohio State probably wins. I don't think Ohio State's played a defense like that all year. They haven't played even close to what Indiana brought. So, we'll see. That'll be really fun if that's the repeat.
But it would be Ohio for my bracket. It would be Ohio State versus Tech or Indiana, and those would be the undisputed top 3 defenses in that discussion. So that would be a really, really cool bracket to see all that turn out. But my dream scenario, like I said, Ole Miss versus Texas Tech. That's what.
So who's in your championship?
So it would be Ohio State, and I'm going to go Texas Tech. I think they figure out a way to win that game. I think the oil money and Landman money is real down there. Yeah. That's what I keep alluding to. It's just,
100%.
I watched the show Landman. It's all it is down there. The oil pumps,
show, man.
The drills. I gotta watch season 2. I gotta start it, but
what are you waiting for?
I don't know what I'm waiting for.
I
really don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm waiting for. But yeah, I think Texas Tech, Ohio State is your championship game, and I think Ohio State goes back to back. But don't be surprised if Texas Tech somehow wins this thing. Would not surprise me at all. Now watch. Now they'll lose first week to Oregon.
Ole Miss by 1 million.
Yeah, there you go. Ole Miss by 1 million. I hope you're right. Well, I do appreciate the two of you hopping on today. Again, the bracket and everything announced today. Notre Dame not in. Miami takes their place. They will go to College Station to face Texas A&M. Wild stuff that will unfold here in the college football realm. We'll have to wait until next week, or 2 weeks, that is, December 19th and December 20th to see all of that unfold. But it should be a fun last month or so of college football, as the championship is held on January 19th. I believe that is Martin Luther King Day. So we only have so much time left. But boys, I would love to have you guys back on ahead of these matchups to kind of break them down a little bit more in depth. And when we get finalized lines, we can make picks on which teams to cover and who we think will win. And as the playoff continues and prolongs, every week we will have new videos up with the two of you on there, and we'll break down everything.
Dylan, as our teammate from ESPN says, can't wait. How about that? That's how we ended.
Love it. Yeah.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Navy's beating Army next week.
Oh, there you go. I forgot about that game next week.
4.5, 3.5.
What's the spread there?
I don't even know.
4.5 Navy.
Is that what it is?
All right, I'll take Navy.
Yeah.
Blake Horvath is that guy. I've seen enough.
Good.
He's that guy.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning into the Allen's Hour. Again, that's Dan Destler. I guess he's over on this side. That's my brother Andrew down here, and I'm Dylan. We appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned. In a couple of weeks, we'll come back and we'll discuss everything college football playoff with the matchups going on during that weekend. So make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, ring that bell so you're notified every time we post on here, and we'll catch you next time.